Greetings and welcome to the season finale of Voices from Albion, a Magnetic Minstrel podcast. My name is Richard McPherson and I'll be your host tonight. We have prepared something special for you this evening, so grab a plate of Highland oatcake smothered with red dragon cheese and a frosty flagon of imperial red ale, and sit back while I tell you the tales of a lost Albion empire and the musical saga of Magnetic Minstrel. Episode 10, Aneurin and the Realms of Atlantis. Chapter 1, Summons to Ancient Atlantis. Part 1, Seeking Sanctuary in Steel Haven. Life goes on, only for Aneurin moving on proved much more difficult than he thought. The band agreed to an extended hiatus after the funeral for Callistra of 9 months to give him time to grieve. Their tour was officially over and they all retreated to their respective lives to regroup. For Aneurin, this meant a solo journey to try to recapture his lost muse, which had utterly deserted him in the wake of Callistra's death. He saw her ghost everywhere and heard her voice like a whisper on the winds. Deciding finally on a walkabout of his own, Aneurin struck out in his Aston Martin Vanquish to cruise the Autobahn across Germany in search of adventure and something to rekindle his spirit. His wanderings finally brought him to Munich at an unexpected rendezvous. A chance meeting led him to the abandoned Cold War-era steel foundry of Stahlhafen. Within the massive shell of its dilapidated ruin, Aneurin envisioned a new home for a magnetic minstrel and a European production facility that would launch the band to its next level of its musical journey. Purchasing the crumbling facade of Stahlhaven, Aneurin returned to Bremerhaven on the shores of the North Sea, where another adventure awaited to be born. Part 2, The Birth of a Crimson Leviathan. When he had first mentioned the idea of building the Red Zeppelin at the end of their European tour, the rest of the band thought he was completely mad. It took almost 18 months to build the vast airship, more than 500 feet long, that would be their aerial home on their second tour. When finally confronted with its magenta magnificence inside a massive hangar in Bremerhaven, the reality far outweighed anything Aneurin could have imagined. With its gigantic red hull covered with an imaginative array of photovoltaic cells to power its huge electromagnetic engines, what really captured his imagination was the great emblem that adorned its side, a massive red tree shaped like Yggdrasil set within a black shield, emblazoned with the word Albion engraved within. Her Majesty's airship Albion was christened that very day and took its maiden flight over the North Sea, much to the delight of all who beheld her and the great emblem of Albion, for it meant that the hiatus of Magnetic Minstrel would soon be over, and they would soon return to enchant the world with their visions of ancient Albion. Once they returned to Bremerhaven, Aneurin sought the refuge of his hotel room to contemplate what he knew was coming, only he received the revelation of a far different kind. Feeling a sudden rush of vertigo, the hotel room suddenly disappeared, and moments later he found himself within a chamber dominated by an intricate swirling gyroscope swirling endlessly about him. A portal opened in the wall in front of him, and he saw the panorama of a great city with crystalline towers, metallic obelisks, and golden pyramids, and the revelation slowly dawned on him there was only one place he could be, the lost city of Atlantis. Chapter 2, The Southern Plains and the Children of Nemet. Part 1, An Unwilling Emissary. When he finally confronted the ruling council of the city of Atlantis, Aneurin could barely contain his anger at being summoned back into the past once more against his will. He had barely begun to grieve for Callistra and actively resented this intrusion into that grief. Yet it was the charming sincerity and nearly childlike wonder of Ildanta, queen of the Numidians, that finally won him over. Almost in spite of himself, Aneurin found himself intrigued by the tragic story of the children of Nemed. In countless millennia long past, their celestial realm of their parents had been invaded by the Formorians. In a final act of desperation, they set their children adrift in sleeper ships to escape the terrible fate at the hands of the Formori. Wandering the cosmos aimlessly, their prolonged slumber in cryostasis affected their growth, and when they were finally discovered by the Teotihuacan, they were retrieved and awakened from their cryogenic sleep. Once they reached adulthood, their growth had been stunted, and they remained almost like a race of leprechauns. Equally as fascinating were their keen, brilliant minds that would fashion the great city of Atlantis upon making landfall on Earth, creating the technological wonder of Wayfarer's Haven in the frozen seas of Earth, still in the throes of a prolonged ice age. Ildanta revealed that her true purpose in summoning Aneurin back to Atlantis was twofold: his help in the formation of the Atlantean Confederacy with the disparate alien races of Earth, and secondly, the more onerous problem of the Dragon Riders of Atlantis, whose fall from grace would eventually beget the Coldine. Part 2. A pair of unexpected allies. Aneurin was grateful to find that he also had a couple of new allies in Atlantis. Only hours after he arrived, he found that Captain Mary Magdalene Russell had made a safe translation from her encounter with Aneurin in Albion, and that the Coldine had been safely returned to their imprisonment within the transdimensional mirror. She was very happy to see Aneurin again, but greatly saddened when she heard of Calestra's fate at the hands of the Glaisting Swarm. With her came an entirely new acquaintance, Grand Master General Geoffrey de Belair of the Armies of Humanity. Aneurin remembered that her search for her lost love, along with her quest to return the Coldine to their confinement, was what had driven her to take the one-way journey back in time. Together they told him the story of the defeat of the Coldine at the Battle of Armageddon. Now they were on the opposite end of that story, as they would play an integral role in the creation of the Dragon Riders of Atlantis and their eventual rebellion that would force their captivity inside the transdimensional mirror. Chapter 3. The Emerald Reaches of the Teotihuacan. Part 1. Queen of the Heavens. Perhaps the most significant aspect of his initial journey to Atlantis was Aneurin's reunion with Queen Danu of the Teotihuacan. While she had taken on a spectral aspect during their meetings in Albion after she had taken refuge within the Seven Sisters, he now met the beautiful queen of the elders of the Teotihuacan in the flesh. Initially, it was very unnerving how much she reminded him of Calestra, with her waist-length platinum hair and slender sculpted figure. Yet it was her luminous green eyes that always reminded him that she was like an angel that had descended to Earth. It was over his subsequent visits to Atlantis from the modern world that she would reveal the incredible journey of her long life across the cosmos until her acceptance of the model of mortality and creation of a celestial empire of the Seven Sisters. It was not until the invasion of the Formorians that the Teotihuacan fled the Seven Sisters, where they encountered the children of Nemed along the way. Once they made landfall on Earth, Queen Danu set out with the aid of her companion monarch, Queen Ildanta of the Numidians, to form the Atlantean Confederacy to a very singular end, to create a strong alliance to face the future that would eventually come, the arrival of the Formorians. Part 2. Legacy of the Seven Sisters. Aneurin found that he was enchanted with the magnificence of the Teotihuacan. Upon his first visit to their sanctuary of the Emerald Marches in Irian, he could only imagine what their realm in the Seven Sisters must have been like. The splendid palaces, temples, portals and castles spoke of a technology almost beyond imagining. It was their gift of the orichalcum, the white energy crystal, to the Numidians that helped force the creation of their innumerable crystalline towers. The Ten-Aneurin built all of their structures from the orichalcum crystal, and it helped focus the power of the talismans that they brought in their flight from the Seven Sisters, the stellar gems of the Cuman Tiari. Forged from the very stars themselves, the Ten-Aneurin had created them by moving the stars within the event horizon of a black hole. Shrinking them to the size of a fist, they fashioned talismans of nearly limitless power. Bringing them to Earth, they secreted them inside the citadels of the ages, where the power of a Cuman Tiari merged with the energy of the Earth to create a vast ley line network which encompassed the globe with its veil of power. It was the hope of Queen Danu that they would provide the court of last resort that would bring about the ultimate defeat of the Formorians. Chapter 4, Agartha on the Underworld of the Anunnaki. Part 1, Ambassador to the Hypogean Realm. Aneurin's first assignment as Ambassador of Atlantis was to visit Agartha, the underground world of the Anunnaki. Newly awakened from their mysterious slumber, they are a race of giants created by the hand of the long-lost Lemurians, who vanished from Earth in epochs past. Aneurin was discovered that they are a race of gentle giants with a gift for kindness and understatement that underscored the size of their giving hearts. They accepted an alliance with Atlantis without question and quickly grasped its necessity under the threat of the Formorians. In his visit to Agartha, Aneurin was enchanted with their easygoing nature and subtle turn of phrase, which every sentence always carried a double meaning. They seemed to be a race without guile, and he found their candour greatly refreshing. At the end of his visit to Agartha, Aneurin was surprised to find that they had been created as guardians of the immense Tower of Babel that had built directly over the top of the underworld realm of Agartha. When they spoke of its true purpose, Aneurin would find that it directly contradicted everything he had heard about its legend in the modern world. Part 2, The Mysterious Tower of the Ancients. The legacy of the Tower of Babel was that it was a mysterious creation left behind by the Lemurians upon their departure from Earth. Crafted from stone hewn from its vanished lands, the tower was fashioned from ascending concourses that stretched up into the sky. Its function appeared to have been multifaceted. On one hand, the legend left behind by the Lemurians was that it was a means for the fledgling race of the Anunnaki to speak to their vanished creators. On the other hand, it also appeared to be sending a signal out into the heavens which had drawn the variety of alien races that sought sanctuary on Earth. Whatever its purpose, the Tower of Babel was a legacy left behind by the Lemurians, so that once the Anunnaki became of age, they might discover the secret of a chalice of knowledge, the secret grail of the Lemurians, presumed lost and awaiting the revelation of its place of hiding. Before their departure, Lord Enlil of the Anunnaki was presented with a gift from Queen Ildanta of Atlantis, one of the Seven Sisters fashioned within the heart of a metallic cauldron to be set at the very heart of Agartha with its amber sunstone at its core. The gift is a boon meant to forge a new bond between the giants of the Anunnaki and the lost children of Nebin of Atlantis in the forthcoming war with the demons of the Formori. Chapter 5, Midgard and the Halls of the Aesir and Vanir. Part 1, In the Halls of Valhalla. The next stop for Aneurin as emissary of Atlantis was the frozen wastes of Hyperborea on the icy realm of Midgard. Home to the dimorphic race of the Aesir and Vanir, Aneurin was immediately taken with their warrior ways and their naturally feisty nature. Always combative among themselves, they seem to make splendid allies in the war against the Formorians. Yet he is also confronted with the obvious rivalry between the two races that runs very deep. Aneurin sensed the underlying difficulties in getting them to cooperate with each other. This is magnified when he is taken to their stronghold at Castiel Valhalla. There he meets King Odin and Queen Freyja of the Aesir, along with their two sons, Thor and Loki. The bristling rivalry boils over when he's invited to a feast in his honour. Once there he meets the rival clan of the Vanir, whose majesty and grace is in direct contradiction to the coarse warlike ways of the Aesir. Lord Frey and Lady Freyja seem to embody the very nature of the earth. Aneurin was made aware that the Vanir had been vanquished in a disastrous war between the Aesir and Vanir, which caused the ruin of their homeworld of Asgard in the heavens. They fled its ultimate destruction and eventually made their way to Earth, where they made peace with each other, yet the underlying rivalry remained. Part 2. Under the Rainbow Bridge of Heaven. Following the feast in Castiel Valhalla, Aneurin is taken to Castiel Asgard via the frozen river Vimir. Sailing upon its frigid torrents, he first beholds the Rainbow Bridge of the Bifrost. Descending down from the heavens in a great swirling vortex of multicolored light, Aneurin is struck by how much it is like the Aurora Borealis of the modern day, which he begins to believe is the remnant of its once glorious power. Once inside Castiel Asgard, he realizes the great might of the Aesir and Vanir. The halls of the vast citadel seem to be permeated with its power, and this is manifested by the soaring warriors of the Crimson Valkyrie, whose reddish armor absorbs the power of the Bifrost, enabling them to fly up into the sky like the archangels of future Albion. Combined with this were the earthly silver shield maidens, whose metallic shields also harness the power of the Bifrost. At the height of their meeting at Castiel Asgard, King Odin is gifted by Queen Hildanta of Atlantis with the spear Gungnir, which is forged from one of the seven sisters, and whose glowing magenta sunstone is set within its blade. Their alliance is cemented, and both the Aesir and Vanir pledge their blades against the Formorians. Chapter 6. Tuonela and the Forest of the Kalevala. Part 1. Within the Shadow of a Silver Mountain. Aneurin is next charged with visiting the elven race of the Kalevala within their forest city of Tuonela. The Kalevala are an elusive race whose woodland realm extends around a vast crater, at the heart of which lay a singular silver-capped mountain. The legends brought down from the forest folk is that the Kalevala fell to earth in a shower of silver threads, coming to rest at the summit of the silver mountain to cover it with its silvery cap. Aneurin found that he had very little difficulty believing the myth when he looked at the silvery sheen of their skin, their elegantly shaped faces and pointed ears, or the platinum color of their hair. When he was finally taken to the city of Tuonela with its elevated tree houses, he learned that it was indeed much more to the legend. It was there, after a welcoming feast of the exotic and strange fruits and nuts that were grown by the Kalevala, that he was first told a story about the secrets of the Sampo. Part 2. The Sleep of Transfiguration. Deep within the heart of the forest surrounding Tuonela lay the hidden chambers of the Sampo. When Ilmarin, leader of the Kalevala, spoke of their slumber within the Sampo after their arrival on Earth, Aneurin began to see that there was more to the legend of their landing upon the Silver Mountain. The pods seemed to be some kind of matter transformation chamber, that the Kalevala underwent a transfiguration from the state that allowed them to journey across the heavens back into their mortal form. When he beheld the Sampo, it bore a remarkable resemblance to the hibernation compartments that had held the children of Nemed on their journey to Earth. Seizing upon that revelation, he saw that the Sampo might be able to restore what had trapped their bodies in their endless adolescence. It would be Queen Hildanta herself who would venture inside the Sampo in an attempt to test Aneurin's hypothesis. When she emerged from her slumber, Aneurin could tell that the sample had had the desired effect, and that Queen Ildanta had had the curse of everlasting childhood removed from her. It was only a matter of time before she would grow to the full flower of womanhood under her newly restored mantle of mortality. Thus, a lasting alliance was forged between Atlantis and the Kalevala, forged in that single act of kindness. Chapter 7, Olympus and the Eyrie of the Titans. Part 1, Upon the Heights of Olympus. Aneurin would find his visitation with the Titans of Olympus far from enjoyable and frankly rather harrowing until its conclusion. The Atlanteans would discover that a starship of city-sized proportions had taken up orbit above the Earth. Queen Ildanta would receive nothing less than a commandment from its reigning monarch, Lord Kronos, to present upon its orbital platform. When she and Aneurin presented to the floating city, they were met with emissaries of the shapeshifter race of the Titans. Able to change form at will, they were arrogant nearly beyond belief and demanded the immediate allegiance of Atlantis and indeed all the races of the Earth. When they met with Lord Kronos inside his vast audience chambers, he presented himself as a colossus nearly 100 feet tall that sat upon an immense white marble throne. In this terrifying aspect, he created a vast thunderstorm and sent a powerful torrent of lightning earthward to destroy the Tower of Babel in a show of his strength. Commanding them to return to Atlantis with a day to pledge its fealty, it left both Aneurin and Queen Ildanta to contemplate the nature of their response. As nightfall dawned upon Wayfarer's Haven, they were to receive help from quite an unexpected quarter. Part 2, Rise of the Olympians. That night they received a visitation from the children of the dreaded monarch Kronos. The Olympians, as they had come to style themselves, wished to overthrow the tyranny of their father and subsume control of Olympus. While it seemed nearly impossible, it was the eldest son of Kronos, Zeus, who revealed the single weakness of his father. His Achilles' heel turned out to be the very power that controlled Olympus itself. By seizing control of this matter transformation mechanism, they would thereby be able to control not only the floating city, blocking their father's ability to shapeshift. Once this coup had taken place, they would force their father to abdicate his throne, and Zeus would be installed as its new monarch. While Aneurin was deeply mistrustful of Zeus and his motives, he had little choice save accepting his terms. The next day would see the coup successful, and Kronos and his retinue of Titans sent forth into the heavens into formless exile among the stars. Zeus indeed forced himself a new throne on Olympus, and when he took his place upon it, Aneurin found himself wondering if they had simply exchanged one tyrant for another. Chapter 8, The Rig Vedas and the Secret of Shambhala. Part 1, Upon the Very Threshold of the World. It was only when the secret sanctuary of Shambhala was revealed high in the mountains above Indus that Atlantis would learn of the hidden legacy of the Rig Vedas. Aneurin would travel to the heights of the mountainous safe haven where he found the surprising citadel of Shangri-La. It was an island within a great lake heated by 4 active volcanoes. There resided the ageless Rig Vedas, each the embodiment of the massive tales of the Wheel of Time. While taking human shape, Aneurin quickly discerned that this was only for the benefit of their guest, and their true form was something quite different. Sensing nothing except benevolence from his hosts, Aneurin questioned the leader among their hosts, Vishnu, about the nature of the Formorians and how they might be able to prevail against such a powerful adversary. It was Vishnu's cryptic, silent response that gave no answer to the question, only instead to lead them up into the frozen mountains that surrounded the lake citadel of Shambhala, where he eventually said they might find an answer to that question. Part 2. Looking into the mirror of heaven. All along their frigid journey into the steep ranges of the high mountains, Aneurin wondered what he might find at the end of their trek. Vishnu was remarkably silent along their journey, although he found himself cheered that Vishnu seemed to know exactly where their party might find shelter and sustenance along their journey. When finally they made camp in the shadow of the entrance of a spectacular set of icy caverns, did Aneurin sense that they had come to the end of their sojourn. Under the sea of stars that night, Vishnu took them inside the caverns, where at first they found nothing to substantiate their search. When at last they came to an enormous central clearing, did he see the ultimate objective. There, embedded in the far wall of the cavern, was a mirror the likes of which he had never seen. Within its reflective surface, he saw the rippling waves of light not unlike the surface of a midnight lake. Slowly, the reflection resolved into a sea of stars nearly beyond reckoning. There were oceans of nebulae and swirling arms of manifold galaxies. It was only when his eyes grew accustomed to the darkness of the cavern and the shadowy image within the mirror that he saw something else. A vast fleet of black starships barely visible against the dark tapestry of stars, stretching back as far as he could see. When he let out a startled gasp against the impossible size of the armada, that he felt the dark touch of evil enter his mind and the sound of a single menacing voice.
We are the Formorians. We are at war with the light, and we are the very embodiment of darkness. We are the Formorians, and we are coming.
This has been Voices from Albion, a Magnetic Minstrel podcast. This concludes Season 1 of the podcast. We hope that you have enjoyed the show and will join us again in the new year when we return with the premiere of Season 2. So until next time, stay safe in this uncertain world, my fine lads and lasses, and fare thee well. Voices from Albion, the Magnetic Minstrel podcast, is a production of Cairnmore Audio. Copyright Richard McPherson, 2020. All rights reserved.